All right, in this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to create a very basic cinemagraph. So to start off, you need to open up your video file. So you need an MOV file, AVI file, and I think M4V would work as well. So I'm going to go to File and Open. You don't want to have a super long video file. I'm going to crop it down in Photoshop. But really, your cinemagraph is based on less than 10 seconds of footage. Not even really, it's really small. So here is a video from a former student. Okay, so this student just wanted to have the light looking like it was turning on and off. And although she's not really moving too much, she does some sort of movements, wanted to make it look like she was almost swinging around that and staying still when the light was turning on and off. So the first thing that I need to do is from this footage, just going to fill my screen up here. I've got my animation timeline open up in the bottom. I need to trim this down, and this is really important. This stage is very important actually. For a cinemagraph, it needs to loop, and the starting image and the end image need to be the same. So the part that is moving has to begin and end in the same fashion. So in this case, we need to start somewhere where the light is off, have the light turn on, and then end again with the light off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this blue little bar here, and I'm going to choose the point where that light starts off. All right, about there. And where it ends, so it turns on, turns off, that's where I want this to end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my flyout menu here, and I'm going to go Trim Document Duration to Work Area. That's going to eliminate everything on the either side of both of those blue bars and give me just the video clip from within that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I need to make a layer for all of the stages of this animation. So I'm going to have a bunch of different layers happening here. If your footage is too long, you're going to end up masking out 80, 90 layers, and you really don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that the movement you choose and the film footage that you take is really strategic to avoid yourself having a lot of work here. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my flyout menu again. Sorry, I'm going to go to my flyout menu again. And I'm going to go flatten frames into layers. So for every frame of animation that I've got, it's going to give me a new layer over here in my layers palette. Okay, so I've got 27 frames, which is actually great for a cinemagraph. I'd say anywhere 50 or below, you're going to do okay. All right, so this bottom layer here that had the original footage, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag this to the trash. Now what I'm going to do is I'm in timeline animation, and I want to go to my frame view. So I'm just going to click down on the bottom here on this little icon. I'm going to click that, and it's going to convert to frame animation for me. Well, right now it only has one frame. I don't want to have to go manually and create all 29 or 27 frames or whatever it is. I can actually really quickly go to my flyout menu, and I can go make frames from layers. So now for every layer that I have in my layers panel, it's going to give me a frame. Perfect. There we go. So I've got all my frames going across here, which should be the same number of layers that I have happening over here. All right, so now we've got to start doing some masking. So cinemagraphs are all based on masks. Essentially what we're going to be doing is whatever the image looks like on frame 0, that's going to be what the majority of the cinemagraph looks like throughout the entire piece. And I'm going to mask out everything that I don't want to move, leaving only the part that I want to have as motion. So on every frame, I need to have frame 0, my layer that's named frame 0, visible, because that's the image that I want to have on top of everything else, the part that's frozen. And what I'm going to do on frame 1 here is I'm going to select the layer that's called frame 1, and on that I'm going to build a mask. So I'm going to put my mask here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint out in black everything that I don't want to be moving. So just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to hide frame 0 for now. I'm going to get my brush, I'm going to paint with black, I'm going to increase the size of my brush here, and I'm going to paint all of this out. can be pretty rough until I actually get into the section that I need to be more careful with here. So I can do this pretty roughly with a soft brush because it's just a really sort of faint image with the light, and there's not a lot of movement happening around this. However, if you had an image that was really detailed, you were trying to have hair blowing or something more detailed, you'd have to really get in and maybe even using the magnetic lasso tool or other selection tools, actually mask this out with a lot of precision. Because the lamppost isn't really moving, I just want the light and all of its sort of rays reflected light showing, so that's really all I need to mask. So pretty easy example here. And I'm going to actually now have frame 0 visible, and there we go. So at frame 1 I have frame 0 and my layer that's called frame 1 both visible for me. I'm going to keep doing this for all of these layers. So it gets a little bit mundane, but you've really got to pay attention to the details when you're masking, or you'll get sort of some jumping around in your image. And again, this is a pretty easy example. So I'm going to go to frame 2, and I'm going to go up to my layer that's called frame 2. I'm going to make that visible, and I'm going to add a mask. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I don't have any changes yet. My light hasn't started to turn on, so I don't have too much going on here that I need to worry about, but this is the process that you would go through. Okay, great. Keep my frame 0 visible. Move on to frame 3. And I'm going to add my mask here, making sure that's visible and underneath. I'm going to hide it for now again so I can see, and I'm going to do the same thing. That visible, move to frame 4. Alright, so if I were to move up here to some of these where I start to see the light coming on, alright, so it's not really happening until frame 6. So I'm going to add my mask there just for the sake of example here. I would do this all the way up. And I'm going to paint out with black. Alright, so what I've got from the beginning here, I'm going to change this to no delay. I go slowly here, not much is happening until I get here, and I start to see my light coming on. Alright. So I would continue doing this all the way up. Obviously when I get up into these layers I don't have my eyeball set to the appropriate layer, but the points where I see Erin sort of subtly moving on some of these layers up here, okay, where I start to see her moving, we're going to freeze all of that motion that we would be seeing by continuing with our masks. So you're going to go all the way through, do this with all 28 layers, and then when we're done, set it to no delay, and we would have it loop forever, where the actual Cinemagraph would be going all the way through with everything masked out layer per layer. And that's pretty much everything.